is Vantage, Aston Martin's uniquely British answer to the supercars of Ferrari and Lamborghini. But unlike the Italians, who seem to be locked into a my car's better than your car battle, Aston Martin don't take that approach. They quite simply build cars that suit their clients. Their clients are rich, stylish, discerning and elegant. Although the Italians tend to prefer the idea of putting the engine in the middle of the car and driving out, sometimes to four-wheel drive, sometimes two, and produce cars that are bristling with high-tech gizmos, the Aston Martin approach has always been far more traditional, with odd exceptions. They've put the engine at the front, just like this one is, driving out through the rear wheels. Nice, big, solid V8. What's more, the car's got the looks to go with the muscle. It makes postmen cross to the other side of the road in case it leaps out and bites them, and mad dogs scurry away for cover. What you're getting is a bespoke car. It's in British racing green, this particular example, and very tasteful with it. Tan leather interior with green piping to match the paint. But if you wanted it in Mr. Blobby colours, I dare say you could have it. The Aston Martin approach has always been to produce what the customer wants, even if the customer's wrong. It's a bit like a Savile Row suit in that people may not necessarily recognise the Aston for what it is, but they know style when they see it. The heart of any supercar is its engine, and the one here under the bonnet of the Vantage is a bit more special than most. It's a V8. It was a development of the original Tadek Marek designed engine that was first produced for Aston Martin back in the early 70s. But in this state, it's got 5.3 litres, 32 valves, and whereas the normal Volante version would give a pretty modest 340 brake horsepower, this one's been persuaded to produce 60% more power. Thanks to these two babies here, which are a pair of Eaton TS91 superchargers. Between them, they provide enough hoof to take the power right up to a stonking 550 brake horsepower, making this one of the most powerful road cars available. In fact, it's one of probably only 2 or 3 that are on the market. But why superchargers and not the far more fashionable turbocharger? The simple reason is that a supercharger delivers power from right down at the bottom end of an engine's speed range. At 1000 RPM, they're starting to work. With a turbocharger, it can be 3,000–4,000 RPM. You can sometimes write a postcard home before the turbo's spun up to speed and started to do anything meaningful. The Aston is long gone, because the superchargers have already developed the hoof. Now, the thing you get here is a car that is tractable, it's usable, it's a real pussycat, but thanks to this engine, it's got the heart of a lion. Drive an Aston Martin, you become part of a very exclusive club. People like Jackie Stewart, Peter Collins, Sterling Moss, even Carroll Shelby, the guy who invented the Cobra. They've all won races in Aston Martins. But as you can see, this is nothing like any race car. I'm wrapped up in leather, in wood, basically in the lap of luxury. Whereas most big supercar manufacturers tend to go to an automatic gearbox when they've got a hugely powerful engine like this beast, Aston have taken the other approach. They've resolutely stayed to a manual box with 6 speeds. The top one allows 100 miles an hour at 2,000 revs a minute. It's got to be the perfect way to have breakfast in London and dinner in Cannes or Nice. The amount of visibility I've got in here is actually very, very good. Definitely more than you'd enjoy with any Ferrari. There I go again, making comparisons, when really the Aston is very much in a league of its own. The one thing that does surprise me a little is the amount of parts bin engineering that's existing in here. If you look around the fascia, you've got bits from Ford Escorts, like these switches, you've got bits from Scorpios, bits from, I think, a Vauxhall. I think the steering column has come from a Rover. But really, does that matter? They're all wrapped up so nicely, so well disguised, that they actually look like they've been designed into the car. And from Aston Martin's point of view, they make 2, at best 3 of these a week. That's Aston Martin hand-built cars, full stop, including the Volante convertible. And I think they do an occasional shooting break, £250,000 worth of estate car. With those sort of numbers, it really isn't worthwhile tooling up to produce individual items. So they just buy in from their parent company. And when Ford took over Aston, there was a great fear running through the motoring community that basically the cars would become Fordized, they'd become regular mainstream production cars. They're not, they're still hand-built, totally. It takes 3.5 months to put one of these together. One thing that is for certain is that Ford have supplied enough funding to enable Astons to look to the future in a way that they've never been able to before. One downside to the Aston is it's a very wide vehicle. It's, I don't know for sure, but I would say certainly wider than a typical delivery van. And that makes threading through small villages and town traffic something of an ordeal. You do really have to think about what you're doing. I think especially important to think about when you're trying to thread this through small gaps is that if you dent one of these front wings, you get a bill for about £5,000 and probably have to wait a while for it to be made anyway. Even when the going's heavy and you're stuck in traffic, it's great just to rumble around in this car. It's actually as easy to drive as, dare I say it, a Ford Fiesta. The thing is, you've got 10 times as much power as any Fiesta, and you could buy 25 of them for the price of an Aston. That's for me, you know, forget it. You give me one of these instead of 24 Fiestas any time. In terms of ride comfort, which is not something that usually applies very much to sports cars, Astons have managed to strike quite a good balance with this car. You feel the bumps, you feel the jiggles, but none of them actually intrude that much. They don't jar your kidneys. You don't get out of this car after a long run feeling phased, tired, worn out, wrung out. You just feel good. Perhaps surprisingly, given the amount of luxury we've got, sort of Wilton carpets, obviously lots of soundproofing, it's not as quiet as you might expect. There are whines from the superchargers and there are all sorts of strange noises and zizzes come out of this ZF 6-speed transmission. Everything, I think, has been done to make the driver feel more involved. And you do certainly feel very involved in this car. I'm getting the delicious feedback from the steering. My backside's telling me exactly what's going on at road level. In short, it's just a perfect way to travel. The car's no lightweight to drive. It's not like driving a Bentley or a Rolls Royce. You know what you're doing, you know everything's feeding back, and you're expected to put as much into the car to rumble around making these delicious, delightful, pure English sports car noises. There's none of the howl and scream of a Ferrari. This is just rumbling, grumbling, deep red noise. An association that Aston Martin's benefited from over the last 30 years or so have been with the James Bond films. 007 has traditionally driven an Aston Martin. So when I open this cubby hole and discover 2 little black buttons, I think, great, they've given me an ejector seat and a smoke screen, which could become really useful battling through traffic. Unfortunately, they do nothing more dramatic than open the filler caps. And opening filler caps has meant I've had to use quite a lot of this because I've averaged less than 15 to the gallon during my time with the car. But it's been very good for collecting tiger tokens, and in terms of fun and enjoyment, this car takes some beating. One of the nice things about the Aston is the fly-off handbrake. Pull it up and it flies off. And so do you.